working in cybersecurity for over 10 years. And I started my career building my own self-learning path. That's why I often advocate the same for the rest of you. So we run these live streams every Tuesday and Thursday to help and guide you through your cybersecurity journey, answer any of your cybersecurity questions, and remove any constraints, misconceptions that, there are plenty of them in the industry. So we're going to spend the next hour just chatting with you guys, answering any of your questions. As always, chat is always welcome. As I always say, I get a lot of DMs, I get a lot of comments, and I never really have a chance to respond to everyone. So live streams is the way to get it answered. So we got about an hour chat and talk about cybersecurity. Hi, Shalom. Yeah, no problem. Glad you find the videos helpful. As always, we're streaming across all platforms. So if you're on TikTok, obviously there's loads of other material on YouTube and vice versa. If you're on YouTube, we share a lot of information on TikTok daily. Alongside all of the roadmap videos from YouTube, I created some CV templates, some home lab guides that are on my website too. So if you want, you can grab them there too. But yeah, looks like we're going to have a good hour. We'll see who's going to join us and what kind of questions we're going to get. And we're going to chat a bit about cybersecurity and hopefully answer any of your questions. I think, what I've been, especially I think talking today about cybersecurity, there's a lot of misconception about, what it takes to get into cybersecurity. I think people are, continuously chasing and looking for the next certification, but that's not really the way to do. SR7 says, did you go to the Cybersec event today? No, I did not. Sometimes there's so many, there's so many events that it's impossible to attend them all. And the thing is, especially, it's hard to find events that give value. There's a lot of kind of marketing stuff. How do I join Telegram group? I can't post a link for some reason in the chat, but I'm going to drop another video with a link to the Telegram community. So maybe later today or tomorrow. So yeah, I can share that. Shalom says, I'm doing my BSc in cybersecurity in June. So after that, I'm planning to do MSc, but what? What's next after OSCP? OSCE. But ideally, again, it's not about certificates, guys. Once you get OSCP, you should have enough knowledge to gain a cybersecurity, pen testing job. Because the goal is, not to spend and waste money on cybersecurity certificates. The goal is to get a job, and once you get a job, it's your employers to pay for your development. That's how you advance your career. Get your employers to pay for it. Hi, Sutha-san. Welcome. Watch your videos. It's really great. Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Let's see if there's anything else going on elsewhere. The question is, the amount of information rotating around gets me. Yeah, I always say, that's the biggest problem I find, Shalom, that people are, in their journey to cybersecurity, they keep flipping and flopping between 10 different things. And I think that's the hardest bit. Good evening, Blessing. You need to focus and, I always say the hardest part about journey into cybersecurity is the discipline. So the problem is, I see so many people, and it's counterproductive. People doing, they're doing a bit of pen testing, they're doing a bit of SOC, they're doing a bit of that, And the thing is, this way you're never going to get anywhere. the hardest bit and the hardest part is, and I always say before you even start, you can't learn such thing as cybersecurity. You can only learn role-specific skills and certifications. So pick the role, build your path, and stay with it for at least 9 months. The problem is, as I say, people do this, that, and this and keep jumping. Yeah. And secondly, another thing which I think rarely people talk about it, the goal is not to learn everything. The goal is to learn enough to land yourself a job. Because once you get into the job, that's where the real learning starts. Because, on-job learning is way more important than you guys, what you're doing currently. So, build a path, get a job, and then you can build and guide your career because you can take wherever you want to go then. Hi, Drop Mart. Hello, hello. Opinion on Hack the Box. Yeah, Hack the Box is great. Hack the Box is a great starting point if you want to go into, if you want to gain some hands-on skills. Because I think, it used to be only hacking platform. I think they built some kind of SOC level stuff as well. But I always say it's the starting point. Same as for Hack Me. It's the starting point. When you get to a certain level, it's like learning to ride a bike. You ride first, with these helper wheels. The real difference and the real skill happens once you gained enough skills. It's dropping that knowledge into building your home lab. That's the most important thing, home lab and projects. Because everything in there is pretty much, guided. So I'm trying to transition into cybersecurity role, currently studying L2. What else can I do? Well, I don't know what you can do, SR7, because you never mentioned what role you want to land. And that's what I'm saying. You can't land a role in cyber unless you figure out what you want to do in cyber. So yeah, the biggest part you need to do is figure out what you want to do in cybersecurity. Drop March has I just passed Security Plus, no IT background. Would you advise? Build a home lab. That's the next most important thing after Security Plus. The Big 1837 says, what tools do you think I should learn for SOC? Yeah, but again, Big 1837, you listed like 5 different roles. You can't learn things for 5 different roles. What do you want to do? Pick one. There's pointless trying to learn everything for that. Just started my schooling doing A+. Good stuff. How do I get started? Figure out what you want to do. That's how you get started. And then all the roadmaps are on my YouTube. Someone says, I work in tech support, currently learning CompTIA Security Plus. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Doge, where's the best VPN? I've seen a lot of mixed opinions. There is no best. All of the VPNs, going to be circumstantial based on your situation. So it doesn't matter. There is no best. Whatever is the cheapest one is going to work. Gemry says, I'm going to school for cybersecurity with no tech background. A good idea? What do you mean by going to school? You mean going to university? I always say, university is a waste of time and space for cybersecurity. Shalom, Shalom says, yes, with the impact of AI in your perspective, what roles can we be thriving in 2031? Nobody can answer that question for you because we can't predict what's going to happen in a year, let alone in 5 years. It's impossible. What's the biggest challenges and problems in GRC? The biggest challenges is evidence collection. I think GRC is becoming kind of, I see a rise of GRC engineering roles for, evidence collection, automation, and things like that. So that's a kind of big significant move in that space. I guess, adopting and learning the new AI governance, requirements, because I think there's a lot of things happening and changing with EU AI Act and things like that. That's going to be the main kind of challenges in GRC. Learning how to properly do risk quantification, stuff like that. Justin says laptop recommendations. It doesn't matter what laptop you get. As long as you get 16 gigabytes of RAM to build virtualization for your home lab, everything else doesn't matter. Is it useful to have in a pen testing home lab pfSense and Splunk Wazoo? No. No, it's not. That's a SOC tools. Bravery says, is starting a SOC analyst at the age of 45 a good idea? Yeah, age is nothing but a number. I started my career at the age of 30, and people asking now me in their 20s if it's too late. It's never too late. I've got 2 offers: Microsoft Security Consultant Associate and a SOC analyst. The SOC pays more. Well, only you can decide. I don't have any details around those 2 roles, so I can't really help you there. Any job in cybersecurity is AI proof. All of the jobs in cybersecurity is AI proof. Kelly, I have Google Cybersecurity Cert and CC, but I want to transition to red teaming. How do I do that? Roadmap, the full red teaming roadmap is on my YouTube. Kelly, you can watch that video. I'll explain all of it, how to do that. Hello, I saw a clip of you talking about red and blue team. I studied reverse engineering. What should I be? Not only you can answer what you should be. Nobody can answer that question for you. Hello, VR God. Hello, hello. Why I'm not hearing back from HR basic roles when I have OSCP, CPDS? Well, it depends what kind of roles you're applying. If you're applying for SOC roles with OSCP, of course you're not going to hear from them. A roadmap for GRC, it's on my YouTube, Blessing. All of it is there. It's on my YouTube channel. There is a full roadmap. There is no best laptop for security, Jose. It doesn't matter what you get. As long as you have 16 gigabytes of RAM, it's all good. What do you think on the rise of AI for coding? It's in a way it's good, but in a way it's bad also. I think the problem is people who don't understand software development using AI tools, AI tools still make mistakes. And the problem is whenever you come into a problem, if you don't understand what's happening, you're just creating a mishmash. So I think AI is great for building and developing sort of MVP type kind of products, but it's not great for building production grade software. So I think we've got a long way to go. And I think, those organizations who are replacing people with AI, they're gonna suffer. And I've seen so many examples of that. Says, hi, recently earned the OSCP. What certification would be good if I want to be a security AI engineer? There's no certification for security AI engineer. Doesn't, again, it's always the same thing, guys. There's no certification that lands you a job. It's only skills. Forget about certifications, guys. Once you get one certificate that ticks the HR box, the rest of it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you got 20 certificates. You still ain't going to get a job. Because the most important thing for the job is skills. Can you show and prove that you can do the job? That's the biggest differentiator in this world. So unless you can do that, there's no magic certificate that's going to open that door. No, I didn't say, Shalom, that learning cybersecurity is a waste of time. I said going to university is a waste of time. That's a very big difference. Can an AI agent be poisoned? Yeah, of course. Of course, Dizzy. Is a SOC analyst role still viable to enter into a given move towards AI? Yes, yeah, of course. I mean, It's getting harder, but the thing is, don't forget, there's loads of transferable skills between SOC and just being a generic cybersecurity analyst. You know, so there's still plenty of organizations who are still hiring, and you know, not everyone is running headfirst into AI world. What's more demanded currently, GRC, SOC, or pen testing? If I had to choose between these three, Mohammed, I would say GRC probably. Ilham says the coding is required for cybersecurity. Yeah, basically. I mean, it really depends on the role. As I say, you know, Shalom, if you go into pen testing, yes, you probably need to learn Python. If you go into engineering, yes. But for example, if you go to GRC, there's no coding involved there. If you go to SOC, you only need to learn kind of basic commands, whether it's, you know, PowerShell or Bash. And it depends on the environment you're going to be working with. But it's you don't need to become a kind of, you know, a software engineer or, you know, software kind of expert. How long does it require for a newbie to learn forensic? I've just dropped a full Ademola full DFIR roadmap on, was it Monday? Yeah, Monday. So my full roadmap into, if you're going to go into digital forensics and incident response, was roughly 14 months. Ishmael says, I have 2 years experience in ISMS, network monitoring and documentation and SOP review, etc. Can I assume it got cut off. How should I get started? You need to figure out what you want to do first. That's how you get started. The most important thing, if before you get started, guys, is figure out what role you want to do, because there is no such a thing, you know, entering cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is an industry or a field, and there's plenty of roles within it. So you have to figure out. And I'm actually this week, because I think that's I think that's what people really struggle. So I'm just kind of building a script, and I'm going to release probably a video next week, where I'm going to really explain, you know, the difference between the role, the difference between your personality traits, the difference between, you know, what kind of previous career and what kind of previous skills lends perfectly to which cybersecurity role. So I'm gonna drop a video on YouTube next week, and really, you know, tackle, you know, if you were a teacher, if you worked in finance, if you work in accounting, if you worked in help desk, how and what skills are the most helpful, and how to pick, you know, if you are, you know, if you like breaking things, if you like fixing things, if you like defending things, how to figure out what the best path and role is going to be for you, because that's the most important first step that you guys need to take before you even start in cybersecurity. So yeah, no problem. I'll do that, John. Yeah. It's going to drop probably. I'll probably record it at some point this week, and as usually, probably I'll normally drop my videos on midday, so it's probably Monday midday. It's going to be on my YouTube. And as always, you know, guys, those of you who are on TikTok, there's a Linktree link in my bio where you have a link to my website, link to my TikTok, link to my YouTube, link to my LinkedIn. So everything's there if you guys, you know, want to check it out. Liam says, currently a security consultant working a lot of SOC automation, Sentinel improvement work, etc. What do you think the future holds for this type of role in AI? I think there's still, you know, this type of role is still going to be there with AI. I think that the thing is, which I think is people really going to struggle, and whether it's going to be tools, whether it's your knowledge and applying AI, because biggest gap I see in SOC and SOC automation is, yes, you can do SOC automation, you can do Sentinel improvement, but the biggest gap is where kind of tools like BAS come in, where, you know, you deploy security controls, but how can you test and validate that those controls are working as they're supposed to be working? How, you know, what kind of other security controls could prevent a breach? So, for example, you know, doing breach and attack simulation, you know, automating into the next level, dropping something like open BAS platform, and actually testing those controls. You know, I think there's still loads of legs and you know, growth in those roles. There's, you know, I think AI is, you know, I think AI is, there's a lot of hype and a lot of nonsense around AI, but I've seen some great examples. Like one really good example from the weekend, I saw, some company fired their whole QA team and replaced it with AI. AI still hallucinates. AI still makes mistakes, and if you over permission it, it just goes off the rails. So what AI did, it created a discount coupon for all of their products and sold everything for $0. So even though they fired the whole QA team, they saved $1.2 million, but they lost $6 million because of that mistake. And then the directors, they were scrambling. They tried to call back the fired QA lead to ask them to fix it. And I was like, you fired the guy. You think the guy's going to help you fix it for free? They send them far, far away. So I see that so many instances where companies firing team, replacing it with AI, and then scrambling back to rehire the team because AI messed up. Yeah, exactly, Liam. Kelly says, what level of network knowledge do I need to become a pen tester? I think, it's always that same debate. I think, I understand why people do CCNA, but I think, I always say CCNA is a networking engineer certificate. We're not trying to become network engineers. We're trying to learn enough so we can secure or we can pen test the network. So for me, it's no brainer. And you don't even need a certificate, Kekeli. Jump on a Professor Messer, watch all of the Network Plus videos, and I think you can learn enough. And then it's about, it's more about practice. It's about, firing, running up Wireshark and actually understanding how networks happen using Nmap and stuff like that. What the Silent Caliber says, any tips to get my first SOC analyst role in current IT field tech, almost complete security? Yeah, perfect. Security Plus, next thing, Silent Caliber, building a home lab, setting up 5 great projects to showcase your skills that you are ready for the job. If you can try Hack Me alongside to learn some of the skills and knowledge, like for example, Blue Team Online, Labs, Let's Defend, Cyber Defenders. There's so great these platforms to start with, but then taking that knowledge, building a great portfolio with the home labs, that's the most important thing in your journey towards landing the first role. Black says, love your videos. Thank you very much, mate. I really appreciate people enjoying and loving the material. It's always been the way in kind of trying to help people, trying to, remove the uncertainty, misinformation, and some of the crap that's circling around online. So it's good to hear that you guys are, finding it helpful. Difference between cybersecurity and cloud security. Cybersecurity is an industry or a field. Cloud security is part of it. There is no difference. What is the best SIM tool to learn? User, again, that's a it's a common question that really shows that you guys are are inexperienced or don't really know, and that's why I think it's great to have these lives. Look, it doesn't matter what SIM you're going to learn, because once you learned one, the concepts apply to every single SIM. So whatever you prefer, you want to learn Splunk, you want to learn Elasticsearch, you want to learn Sentinel, all of them are going to be great. Just learn one. Because once you learn one, you understand the concept of SIM, how they work. Because, the goal is, as I always say, the goal is to land the job. So once you learned one, and, pick, I don't know what, depends what kind of role you're trying to land. But, if you're trying to work for a company that uses Microsoft tools, Sentinel is going to be the best. If you work for old school on-premise enterprise, probably they'll use Splunk. Elasticsearch is a great open source SIM. So it doesn't matter which one you're going to learn, because the chances are that you're going to land in a company that uses a different SIM. So you still need to going to be learning it on a job, but you will understand the concepts of how to build rules, how to push logs into SIM and what it does. That's the most important thing. John Dell says, I just graduated software engineering. How can I land a job in cybersecurity? Well, you need to do the same thing. You can't land the job, first of all, John, in cybersecurity, unless you want to, and you need to figure out what kind of role you want to do in cybersecurity, because there's 10, 20 different roles in cybersecurity. So that's the most important thing. You need to figure out what you want to do. Then you can follow one of my roadmaps and work towards it. Will cybersecurity be a higher tier job in the future? Well, it's still a high tier job now, and it's only gonna go up. I think it's gonna differentiate. I always say, one key point I want to mention about AI. I always say AI is nothing but a tool. AI is a force multiplier that allows people to do more with AI. But AI is not replacing people. But people who know how to use and secure AI will replace those who can't. So that's the biggest differentiator in the near future in the cybersecurity career and industry. To build a foundation in cyber, what's the first and basic certification to do as a beginner? Well, it's not a foundation about cyber, Shalom. It's about foundations of computer hardware. So I always say, if you're completely newbie, start with A+. And you don't need to do certification, guys. Again, don't waste money on passing those irrelevant exams. If you want to go work in cybersecurity, go on Professor Messer, watch A+ videos. You don't need to book a passed exam. A+, Network+, the only exam you need to pass then is Security+. And then it's about building skills and maybe doing another certificate that's role specific. But all the foundation starts with A+, Network+, Security+, and then maybe doing one role specific cert. Google certs or CompTIA? Of course, CompTIA. What is the hireable portfolio project for AWS so I can start applying for a cloud engineer DevOps role? I don't know, because I don't do cloud engineers or DevOps. I only do security, Belalang. Between GRC and pen testing, which do you recommend? Of course, GRC. Thomas says, are you afraid of AI taking your job? No, AI would never take my job. That's impossible. What's the question, Daniel? Talk analyst. What are you asking? Dorito says, I've been in cybersec for 20 years. Good stuff. Amazing. Who's that? Sack says, preparing for AZ-104, AZ-500 for cloud sec roles. I already have IT SOC experience. Would it be better to do project between the certs, or does it matter if I complete projects after the start? It doesn't really matter when you do them. As the most important thing is that you do them, because if you're just going to complete these two certs, I guarantee you have pretty much zero chance of landing a job. So then it's about, building some projects. It's about, building secure infrastructure, maybe deploying Sentinel and setting up some automation to showcase, enrichment, playbooks and stuff like that. That's some great projects you can play around, and you can get some free Azure credits, or if you want to do that, because I assume obviously you're pursuing stuff specifically for Azure, so it's great to do Azure projects. Handy says, I have skills in school administration and want to go into cybersec security. What? Anything you've done in administration, it perfectly lends your skills into going to GRC. Yes. Big B, A+, Network+, then Sec+. Is 6 months good enough for a newbie to learn cybersecurity basics and ethical hacking? No chance. I said, on my roadmap, if you want to land the ethical hacking job, it's about 18 months from zero to becoming experienced. Hey, Ray says, love your video. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you very much. Hey, I will enroll in cybersecurity university in a year. How much time would it take me after to land a job? It really depends, because the thing is, when you're going to finish university, I can 100% guarantee you have zero chance landing a job. So the most important thing is that you need to build yourself a skills. So if you're going to build a home lab, great portfolio of projects during studying university, you can land a job pretty quickly. But if you're going to start doing that after university, it can take 6 months or so, I would say. Benjamin says, hey, I'm working as an office assistant. I just got my CCNA. And where is the question, Benjamin? Which certificate should I pursue first? It depends. How long is a piece of string? Okay, Ray. It all depends on the role you want to do. That's the most important thing you need to do. You need to figure out what you want to do in cybersecurity. Otherwise, it's pointless pursue anything in terms of certificates. So it would be better for me to do side cybersecurity projects for me to find the job early. Yes, yes. Projects showcase your skill. Because don't forget, guys, university, certificate, what do they teach? They teach that you know the theory. They teach that you can answer multiple choice questions. They don't show that you can do the work. And that's the biggest thing. I always say, there are unfilled cybersecurity roles, but it's not people shortage, it's skills shortage. And certificates definitely don't prove that you have skills. Unless you're doing stuff like, OSCP for pen testing, that's probably the only one exception. Well, if you want to do SOC here, Ray, I don't know what's your background and how much, you've done, but I've got the full SOC analyst roadmap on my YouTube. Watch it, and it explains everything that you need to do if you want to become a SOC analyst. Do I really have to go to university? No. I always say, you definitely don't need to go to university. For me, it's a waste of time and space and money. I want to study computer science for my BSc and follow your roadmap by side. Will it be an advantage? What, advantage of doing roadmap or advantage doing computer science degree? Because computer science is software engineering. There's no advantage into cybersecurity doing computer science. DJ Marlowe says cyber resilience is the only way. Prevention is dead. Well, in some way, I think they go hand in hand. You can't do resilience without prevention, because if you're just going to neglect prevention, then, you're going to become an open book. But yeah. It's kind of changed, yeah. The importance of resilience is very important. 𝐾𝐨𝐧'𝐭 says, I have an 8GB RAM laptop. Is it enough to learn ethical hacking? Yeah. Yeah. If you're not building an extensive home lab, you can probably run some stuff on laptop, especially, ethical hacking is probably the only one where laptop doesn't really matter, because you're not going to probably build an extensive home labs like for SOC or for, especially for SOC, I guess. Because all you can do just hack the box machines. If you get a bigger one, yes, you can build more extensive one, because the one thing that you need to learn for pen testing, especially now, is Active Directory exploitation, especially if you're going to work towards OSCP. So, the problem is with 8GB RAM laptop, you can only probably build 1 or 2 virtual machines. If you want to do extensive projects, you need probably more. I just want to start applying for jobs or wait. You can start applying, if you're graduating in June, it's only a couple of months away. Are you happy with what you have? In what sense? Thoughts on Claude Mythos? I think it's just, I'm not worried about one bit about Claude Mythos. I think that, I published a video on TikTok the other day, and I think loads of people have no clue about this mythos. They just heard headlines and everyone started panicking like headless chickens. You have to understand a couple of things about Claude Mythos and how hackers work. Claude Mythos, yes, he found 28 years vulnerability on BOSD. Yes, it did. But it cost about $20,000 in API calls and tokens to find it. So it's prohibitively expensive and nobody can afford to do that. Secondly, if you understand how hackers operate, like I always give this example. Anyone who's kind of familiar with cybersecurity probably heard about Scattered Spider. So Scattered Spider is a new sort of teenage ransomware group that's been attacking places like Marks and Spencer's. Who else did they hacked? A few other big names, but what they do is, they're not using these crazy 0-day vulnerabilities. What they're doing is they're buying credentials from info stealers, even if they're old, and then they're using AI voice clones to change their voice, because they all are English-speaking teenagers from UK, Canada, US. They're changing their voice to an 18-year-old girl, calling companies' help desk with those stolen credentials from info stealers and asking them to change them to a new credentials. They're not hacking, they log it in. And then it's about, using their tools, privilege, escalate, pivot across the network and drop ransomware. That's how they operate. So, there's no crazy 0-day vulnerabilities that these Mythos tools going to uncover. And the problem is, again, even places like bug bounty programs and all of that, they have to pause and reevaluate how they're going to pay for bugs, bounties, because all of these people using, AI slop. The thing is, they're finding shit ton of vulnerabilities, but all these vulnerabilities, like 2 on CVSS score, 1.5, 1.6, is just useless crap. That's, doesn't help in any shape or form. Exploitnik. I did CTFs for a couple of years, decided to get one cert and one cert only. Passed OSCP and landed a junior pentest job. But yes, posted quite a few GitHub projects, which is, yeah, exactly. I always say, and that's a perfect example, where skills, projects, and actually practicing and mastering your craft is going to help you tremendously to land the job, instead of going and chasing 20 different certs. And you're wasting your money and stuff like that. Archlight. The cybersecurity will be replaced by AI. No, of course not. That's a load of crap. I got 64 gigabytes of RAM on my Mac and PC. Yeah, that's good. That's great for home labs. CompTIA qualifications. I always say, CompTIA Security Plus is the most important certificate that you need to get as a sort of fundamental security knowledge certificate, because if you go now on LinkedIn, search for junior cybersecurity job, I bet you out of 100, about 95 of them will ask for Security Plus. So it's an important starting point. Fire.lk. If I start as a dev, what type of role would you recommend for me in cybersecurity that best suits me? DevSecOps. The perfect way, because DevSecOps combines development, security, and operations. So when you come from experience as a previous dev, transitioning and adding security knowledge on top of it is a perfect way forward into DevSecOps. Dimitri says, how you understand and know if cybersecurity is for you? Well, it's really hard, I guess, to know. But the thing is, if you are, you probably weren't here, Dimitri. So I'm going to drop a video on my YouTube next week where I'm going to really explain how to pick the best role based on your personality, based on your previous career, based on, what you are inclined to do. But I always say, if you love investigating, solving puzzles, then for example, digital forensics, malware reverse engineering, or SOC is the best role for you. If you love breaking things and taking things apart, pen testing is the job for you. If you love building and constructing things, any security engineering role is for you. So that's kind of the, everyone has their own tendencies. If you love, creating strategy, policies, documents, then GRC is the role for you. So, everything is the most kind of important. How to create a portfolio? Yes. Oh, it depends on portfolio for what role, Shalom. But there's a home lab video on my YouTube where I explain how to build the best SOC home lab. And I go in quite a depth, and then there is guidance on portfolio and projects to do. Why do you think some folks in cybersecurity are having a difficult time finding work? I think it really depends. I mean, do you mean experienced cybersecurity folk, or do you mean those who are starting out? Because there's two very big differences in that answer. Corporate barbecue, but yeah, I can answer if you can, explain what you actually mean. John Dill says you got short and real answers. That's what we need. Yeah, no problem. Hi, my YouTube. It's if you go in my bio, there is a link to Linktree. When you click it, there's all of the links to all of my platforms, from LinkedIn to YouTube to my website. Everything is in there. Yeah, no problem. No problem, Ty. I think one of the reasons, probably, I would say, is that corporate barbecue, if you say people with 5 years experience struggling to find roles, I think the problem is, I always say, and there's an important thing to note as well, guys. You know, I always kind of mention, cybersecurity is very peculiar role, kind of career choice. If you go in cybersecurity, you have to be a fan of continuous learning and development. So yes, you can have 5 years experience, but what have you done in the last 5 years? If you just stuck to your guns and worked in a one role and you haven't developed new skills and built knowledge, which is kind of, you know, because if you think, you know, cyber barbecue, or sorry, corporate barbecue, if you think how many things changed in the last 5 years, and if you haven't kept up to date with the knowledge, with the new tools, with the new developments, for example, I always say now, the biggest differentiator for those people who are in cybersecurity is learning how to secure AI. So if you add those skills, you become a very desirable employee and commodity to the businesses. And lots of people, you know, just going with the flow until, you know, something, you know, you never know, something happens, you can make redundant, you know, business strategy changes. Yes, you might lose your role. And then all of a sudden, you know, you are struggling because you haven't upskilled yourself in the last 5 years. And yes, you can find in that space. But yeah, you know, market is going through various transitions. And I always say, you know, this kind of cycles. Businesses think they don't need to invest in cybersecurity, so they kind of, you know, reduce spend, and then inevitable bad things happen, and then they scramble to rehire people again. So, you know, there's just loads of probably explanations for that. Kush says, advice for college students trying to get internships with no experience. Should I do certs? No, you don't need certs for internships. You need to try and build projects and showcase skills. Often are you live? I'll go live, Ty, every Tuesday and Thursday. How hard is to build a successful MSSP? Very hard. Very hard. And obviously, the thing is, to build an MSSP, you need a loads of investment, because it depends on what you're going to do. But MSSP most of the time is going to be, you know, managed security services, so such as some things like SOC. So if you want to build a good SOC, you need at least a team of 20 people to run the SOC. I'm not talking about, you know, sales, consultancies, you know, and all of that, architecture and things like that. So yeah, it's hard. What's the best configuration? Doesn't matter what PC you have at the moment. That's the least important thing on your cybersecurity journey. Vasi says, I know you're not a fan of certification, but I find it an easy way to fight complacency and continue acquiring new and relevant skills. No. There's a big difference, Vasi. I'm not a fan of certifications for those who are starting out and trying to land the first role by getting more certifications. If you land the cybersecurity role, that's why I always say, you know, get 1 or 2 certs. The goal is to land yourself a job. Once you have a job, get your employer to pay. Every employer has a training budget. Use that budget to its maximum and get whatever certs you want. But don't waste your own money for it. Does cybersecurity require strong logic and problem-solving skills? Yes. Yes, it does. It has, in most roles. Not in every role, but in most roles, yes. You're always going to be problem-solving. You're always going to be required to be curious, analytical, and stuff like that. Kate says, son is due to start cybersecurity degree in September. Do companies look for specific universities? No. Couldn't care less. Well, especially from my perspective. I would even prefer people not going to university, Kate, and waste money and time, and especially coming out of university with a massive debt to go into cybersecurity. There's no need to go to university to become a successful in cybersecurity career. Well, I certainly didn't go to. And I've been in cybersecurity for 10 years and got to a leadership position without, only went to university when I was 7 years in and did my master's. But I think that was the biggest waste of time and money. That master's degree is not worth the paper that it's written on. It was the biggest mistake I ever done. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, corporate barbecue. Yeah, it's staying relevant and upskilling. Because I always say, technology and cybersecurity, any role in technology, it's about continuous learning. Because the market and field is changing rapidly. So if you're not keeping up with it, you're going to be left behind very, very quickly. Cadillac Cowboy says, I just enrolled in IT support admin so I can get into cybersecurity course after. Cool, good stuff. Bruh says, what would be the best thing to start with if I want to start in cybersecurity? The best thing to start with is figure out what you want to do in cybersecurity, because there's no thing as starting in cybersecurity. There is plenty of roles in cybersecurity, but you have to pick one. Izar says, hey, I've got an offer from FBI as an honors intern. I don't know if I should take it. They sponsor a CSC. Why wouldn't you take it? It's a great starting point, and they're going to teach you so much, especially if you're young, taking government job, because obviously when you are experienced it's harder, because when you're experienced, government jobs really pay kind of, it's a very low level pay, but it's a great learning platform. And once you're going to come out of that program, going in the private sector, you're gonna earn a ton of money, Kazar. So I wouldn't even consider and take it straight away. What about being a cybersecurity consultant? Yeah, but you can't become a cybersecurity consultant without any experience. You need to have quite rounded experience. I mean, you can go to one of these big fours, but I don't really like them. I really, not a fan of them. I start, John, my streams start most of the days. It depends unless something's going on, but currently I'm starting streams at 7:30 p.m. UK time. If you want to find out what projects to do for pen testing, there's a full roadmap on my YouTube, so go and check it out. I explained everything there. How can I prepare before I study it? There's nothing really to prepare. You just have to jump in high time and study it. In Germany, you can do like a pay. I don't know what that means. 3Niz says, hello, I'm really interested in cloud security. Got any suggestions for roadmap projects? Yeah, 3Niz, I've got the full cloud security engineer roadmap on my YouTube. So link again in my bio on Linktree. Explained what projects, what skills to do, what certificates, how to acquire those skills to become cloud security engineer. So check it out. Is the pay good? Yes, pay is really good. Why is that nearly all of the bootcamps post ethical hacking as beginners? Well, the thing is, Digital Shield, you have to remember, I see so many people, everyone thinks that hacking is very sexy and everyone wants to go in it. So bootcamps prey on it. They prey on people, who want to spend shit ton of money following these crazy, unrealistic bootcamps. I always say, pen testing is the hardest and the longest path that you ever going to take to get into any of the cybersecurity roles. My roadmap is about 18 months, whereas, for example, SOC is between 9 and 12. Cloud security engineer is between 12 and 14 months. But ethical hacking or pen testing is the longest one ever. Yeah, Kate, exactly. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. University can be an amazing experience. Expanding your life and worldviews. Meeting new people. But I just don't really think the cost merits it, especially in UK. In UK, you come out of university with a 30 grand worth of debt that you're going to be paying for a long, long time. So, and I always say, I did it myself. I went into and I built my own path to becoming a SOC analyst, and I got my first cybersecurity job in 8 months. So, 8 months, and I spent about 800 quid versus 3 years and 30 grand with no guarantees of getting a job out of university. That's a massive difference that, young people need to undertake and think about. Hey, Candy, evening all, evening all. Ty says, I want to start off with SOC or IM. What should I be working on to get the hands-on knowledge? Well, Ty, again, you can't flippy-floppy between the two. You really have to nail and figure it out. So I always suggest, Ty, again, go on my YouTube, link in my bio. There is a full roadmap for IAM or SOC. Watch it, whole video. Really understand what each role entails, what you need to get there, and pick one. And just focus it. Don't jump between the two, because you're never going to get anywhere if you're going to start picking between 3 different things. Would you think of Malghetto? I have no idea what's Malghetto, Bido. It's Core i7 11th generation 16 Yeah, of course, at the moment. That's more than enough. As long as you got 16 gigabytes of RAM, nothing else doesn't matter. Are you in the UK? Yes, I'm in the UK. How to get contracts and work remotely. Working for contracting. There's contracting agencies that kind of provide, staff and services. So you need to, for example, if you want to work with American companies, you need to see and find companies that supply remote workforce for the US companies. What NIST controls should I prioritize? Oh, nobody can answer that question. It's every organization is going to be dependent, or you need to do a risk assessment and figure out where's the biggest gaps. Otherwise, there's nothing else to prioritize. Why don't many people on the internet talk about AI security? Because I think loads of people still don't have skills in AI security, and that's a real gap. That's why people are not talking about it. But that's the real, difference in the next world. I always say, getting AI security skills is really going to be an important, wave in the near future. No skill issue. Are you able to go into GRC while being new to cybersecurity? No. Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, you can go to straight away from 0 into GRC. Again, there's full roadmap on my YouTube, link in the bio, no skills issue. Check it out. What laptop should I get into starting my journey? It doesn't matter. Nikitamu. It doesn't matter at all. AI too much dangerous. Yeah, AI is definitely dangerous, especially in the hands of those who don't know what they're doing with it. Yeah, no problem, Ty. Head over there. Why Meg says, how do I get into entry-level cybersecurity work? What do I need to do? You need to figure out what role you want to do first, Why Meg. That's the most important thing. Sorry, Marcello, but I assume that's Italian, so sorry, I don't understand Italian. David says, what steps you think should I take after passing CompTIA Plus? You should jump on Try Hack Me or Blue Team Labs Online or Let's Defend or Cyber Defenders, and just do a ton of rooms and practice and build skills. And once you're kind of comfortable in that environment, then David, build a home lab and build your portfolio projects and showcase them on your GitHub. And then you're going to be ready for job search. Which role is the best to begin in cloud? Cloud security engineering. Companies aren't looking at my cyber project portfolio. What can I do? Well, make it visible, Marcelo. I always say, for example, one thing I always talk about, another thing, guys, which is really important, Since I started my cybersecurity career, I was very intentional about building my personal brand. So on my LinkedIn, I've got nearly 23,000 followers. The last 2 jobs, I have never applied for security jobs in the last 5 years. All of the jobs came to me because I continuously shared my expertise, my knowledge. I built a great portfolio and opportunities came to me. So I always say, aside from GitHub as well, document and showcase your learning journey on LinkedIn. That's how you attract hiring managers. That's how you show how are you solving real problems that companies are currently facing. This way, I always say, build a network, connect with other cybersecurity professionals. This is a crazy and sure way to get referrals. Imagine, I always say, your most important thing that you do aside from projects and passing certifications is add 10 connections every single day on LinkedIn. That's 300 people a month. That's 300 people who you can learn from, who you can chat to and show how are you developing your skills, who can become potential referral friends. Because hey, guess what? If the job opens up in my company, who I'm going to first ask? I'm going to ask my employees if they know anyone who could be suitable for that role. That's a surefire way to get referrals and bypass, competition against other 300 people for the cyber roles. And most of you guys are neglecting that. Auntie, there's no point taking any certification unless you can figure out what role you want to do. Can a SOC analyst improve his skills by applying AI tools? Yeah, of course. AI could be a great way to kind of assess the SOC environment, automate, responses, automate evidence gathering. So, for example, if you subscribe to things like Azure, you can deploy Sentinel and you can learn how to build playbooks, how can use AI to enrich incidents and prior information and stuff like that. Yeah, definitely. Hamza, sorry, I assume that's French. I don't speak French. Miller says, I just completed my cybersecurity training and I'm looking forward to internships. Any suggestions? Well, I'm not sure. How can I suggest what? How can you know which role to take? Auntie, I'm and that's that's a really valid question. That's a really valid gap currently. So I'm dropping a video on YouTube next week where I'm gonna answer that exact question. I'm gonna talk through, based on your personality, based on your previous career and skills, how to pick what's the best role for you. So I'm going to talk through, all of the common careers that we currently have, talk about, what kind of personality you are. Do you like breaking things? Do you like building things? Do you like analyzing and solving puzzles? And how does that lend in your cybersecurity career? So that video is out on my YouTube next week. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Again, link in my bio. Yes, Kelly, I have got a community on what's the platform called? Telegram. I just can't share for some reason the link in the chat, but I'm gonna drop probably a video tomorrow with a link so you can guys join Telegram if you want to chat with other like-minded people who are on the same cybersecurity journey. But yeah, guys, my time is coming to a close. As always, great questions. It's amazing to, have so many people ask some great questions. It's amazing to see how many people are, looking forward to build a career in cybersecurity. But, it's important what I talked about today. It's important about, not becoming a certificate chasing merchant, building relevant skills, discipline, and sticking to your guns and working hard. I'm talking about these roadmaps, 9 months, but it's 9 months of about roughly 1 to 2 hours every single day. It's discipline, hard work, and perseverance. That's what gets you hired in 2026. It's not about 20 certificates or getting yourself a cybersecurity degree. So I'll see you guys on Thursday. That's my next live. If you haven't subscribe to my YouTube, where's all of the roadmap videos and some other great stuff that's coming out. Those of you who are on YouTube as well, making sure you're following me on TikTok, and where we share, the shorts and nuggets of great information. But guys, I'm going to love you and leave you. Have an amazing evening. I'm going to share and post in my stories and stuff where's the next live on Thursday. But until then, have an amazing evening, guys. I'll catch you on Thursday.